Hello, welcome everyone. Today we're taking a look at Red Flood. Now, what the fuck's Red Flood? Red Flood is a mod for Hearts of Iron 4 that isn't out yet. It's gonna be out next month, which is about. It's called Legacy of the Великая война. Великая война means Great War in Russian. It's basically supposed to be, one of those World War I happened differently alternate histories. Except they kind of made it to be also a real big meme, and for everything to be as fucked as possible. So essentially what happens in this timeline is World War I, it's not like anyone wins, it's just more like everyone loses. Like I believe it's supposed to be that France gets knocked out of the war relatively quickly, then Russia fucks off, then the British try to hold for a while, and they kind of do, and there's peace with honor with Germany, but the reason why that is because there's a socialist revolution in Germany, and so it ends. Italy kind of gets some stuff, but then weird shit happens, and Poland rises up. Basically, that's the gist of it. And as you can see, this is the map of Europe that we're going to take a look at in a bit. But first, let's take a look at... This is an old map, so don't pay attention to it. But the leaders, and their flags. So Germany is a socialist republic. Its leader is Paul Levy, and... yeah, so basically this is a bit like, if the Spartacist revolt had succeeded. The Bolshevik Revolution had succeeded, but then it was crushed by, I don't know, I think America and Japan or something. And KOLCHAK is the leader. Yes, of course. Glorious supreme ruler. In UK you have Edward VIII and, weird shit. France is insane. Italy is Kingdom of Italy. There's no fascism, but kind of the same. Yugoslavia has the version of fascism that also France and Italy can have. Well, France has from the beginning. As you can see, the French flag is kind of derpy. There's a reason why. It's called accelerationism, which in real life is different, but whatever. There's also a Hungarian Socialist Republic, in case you haven't seen that. So, yeah, let's take a look at the real map of Europe. You can see that, like, for some reason the Netherlands are bigger. Spain is its own thing. Montenegro's big as fuck, and they're also insane. We're gonna take a look at them later. Austria's a little bigger than it used to be. It's got South Sudetenland and Slovenia, and there's a reason. Because all the exiles from the German military, losing to the socialists in Germany, went into Austria, and then there's also like the little Prussia thing, but I don't know what the Prussia thing really is supposed to be in depth, but I know that there's a bunch of German military in Austria, and in fact one of the paths that Austria can take is to try to retake over Germany, so they still have some stuff. There's a weird purple country over there that's Fiume, which we're going to take a look at later. And yeah, Hungarian Socialist Republic, which is allied to the Germans. And then there's the Intermarium. We can see the faction map mode here. There's Poland and the Intermarium. Poland is under Piłsudski, and they have completed, well, mostly completed the Promethean project, what they set out to do after Poland's independence, which is to counteract possible quote-unquote Russian aggressions. They're going to expand into the east, and like Prometheus brought fire to the people, they were going to bring independence to the, ethnicities of the western parts of the Russian Empire. So, the Ukrainians, the Baltic countries, and, Belarus, all that kind of stuff. That was what they were trying to do. Then there's the Commonwealth, which is the Brits, the League of Fiume, which is France, and Fiume, which is the little thing out here on the eastern coast of the Adriatic, which is an Italian little puppet state, but I'm not sure if this is like around at the beginning, because at the beginning Fiume is supposed to be an Italian puppet state. There's Austria, and there's fucking, insane people. Turkey's partitioned, and the Caucasus is insane. Also, Russia is insane, because Russia, despite the fact that, the Russian Republic is technically the Russian state. There's no Tsar, and it's, led by KOLCHAK, so it's a military dictatorship. However, since it's a military dictatorship and the white movement was always kind of always like to fragment and kill each other, and KOLCHAK's an incompetent little piece of shit, it's fragmented into a bunch of million warlords that are technically all Russia, but who knows, maybe they kill each other. As you can see, like, There's also a Zholta Rossiya, Yellow Russia, which is a real thing that they called this part of like Russia in in the maritime province. They called it Yellow Russia, a little bit along the veins of Black Russia and White Russia. I don't know. The Russians are weird and they like colors. And then there's also a Transbaikal little thing, but I'm not sure what that is. China is cool, but we're going to take a look at them later. India exploded. And yeah, I mean, Africa has colonies of everyone everywhere, so who knows? Who knows? And Australia is divided in two for some insane reason, and Vietnam is also insane. That's about it. So basically, we're going to take a look a little bit closer without, wasting too much time into what's going to be happening with these countries. So just very, very quickly going over the progress reports. This is just kind of a teaser. It's going to come out again next month, and I'm going to play it. So yeah, just you can already spam things. So the Russian Republic, after a Pyrrhic victory in the Russo-Japanese War, yeah, also it's supposed to be that for some reason the Russians won the Russo-Japanese War. Russia consolidated itself as a major power and a major player in the world stage, blah, blah, blah. Then World War I starts in 1914 because we have to be different. And the Treaty of 1920 officially ended the hostilities with Germany. The people of Russia were exhausted, deprived, and depressed. The economy collapsed and the agricultural industry was left desolate. The weak liberal government proved unable to revive the economy or relieve the tension. When the revolution broke out next year, the monarchy was abolished and Russia was torn apart by red forces, the white forces, and the ethnic secessionist movement. Its old rival Japan stepped in and forced Russian concessions in the Far East. When the revolution was brutally suppressed by the anti-communist White Army, its leader, War Minister Alexander KOLCHAK, staged a coup against the Republican government with the support of far-right organizations and the patronage of aristocrats and capitalists. So that's basically what's going on. And we're going to take a look at later. There can be some weird-ass shit that goes on in Russia. So like basically they control left bank Ukraine and then the Baltic. The Baltic's kind of autonomous, Ukraine's kind of autonomous, the south is kind of autonomous, then the rest is just Russia proper. Yeah. KOLCHAK can still fulfill his promise, or is it better to find someone else to do the job? Then there's the German Socialist Republic. With the revolution in 1919, Germany became the first socialist state of the world, and its leading role in the Third International was consolidated further. Since then, workers, soldiers, and peasants' councils have effectively controlled the government, legislature, and economic sector. Germany was terrorized by the possibility of a foreign invasion, as many neighbors would like to wipe this rabble-rouser from the face of Central Europe. Many of them have embargoed Germany, which isolated it even further. The isolation became an advantage when the economic crisis broke out in 1934, as its self-sufficient economy was controlled by council and had no stocks, private investments, or international trade, so then suffered the consequences, a bit like the Soviet Union in real life. Germany faces many internal problems. The chairperson of the Reichsräte Congress is Paul Levy, a member of the German Communist Party, Spartacist, the KPDS, the Orthodox Councilist faction that followed the path of Luxembourg since the 20s. So this is basically like, a little bit like our timelines, like Leninism, just a little bit different. Not worth going into whole big discussions about it, and has empowered the councils while maintaining a relatively equal relations with comrade countries in the international. However, Levy's retirement is imminent due to his worsening health, and essentially the replacements can either be centralists, the KPDA, the vanguardists, then there can be the Independent Social Democratic Party, which is a little less radical, the anarchists, the FAUD, and then Jesus Christ, whenever I read this, I'm just like, what the fuck? And then we get into the memes, the National Majority Workers' Party of Germany, NMAPD, and they're nazbols because it's Heinrich Laufenberg. So in case you remember my Führerreich series as Hamburg as the German Socialist Republic, it's those people. This guy was a guy that in real life theorized the National Bolshevism for the first time, and his idea was to utilize German, sort of folkish nationalism and revanchism against the Versailles Treaty as a vehicle for support of for the KPD, and later the KAPD, I believe, which was like the splinter, but it's complicated. So, you know, after the failure of the 1919 to 1921-22 revolutions in Europe, it's like, what can we do as German communists? And his answer was, hey, you know, the Soviet Union wants to, you know, upset the international order and cause a world revolution. That's not entirely incompatible with what the German, like, mega nationalists want to do, because they want to upset the international order to make Germany stronger. What we're going to do is we're going to say, yeah, look, Versailles is bad, because that's true for us, but then turn it around and make it a quote-unquote kind of communist thing. And he was expelled because it's a ridiculous idea. And, you know, socialists are supposed to be technically against nationalism. For some reason, in this mod, Goebbels, who apparently, because he grew up in the German Socialist Republic or something, I don't know, is now a socialist, but he's probably just a power monger, and they're going to try to kill everyone. So that's great. United Kingdom is the United Kingdom, but they've got the Social Credit Party, so like the crazy people. I believe they're supposed to be like an extreme right-wing kind of thing. And India exploded for them, so that's not exactly the greatest. France is insane, and we're not going to take a look at them here extensively because they have another progress report that we're going to take a look at later. So basically, right now they are under the Mouvement Futuriste Français, the Futurists, which are in real life a artistic movement that had different political leanings depending on the country. Mostly they were fascist, but in Russia they were communist. And, you know, it's avant-garde art. But in here, they're also a political movement, and it's kind of funny. Let's see if I can find something funny about it. Oh, don't want that. Yeah, like this one. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at that later. So basically, they have a, like, cult of individual action, cult of individualism, cult of speed, while at the same time, you know, all that subordinated to the great, you know, state, and cult of war, aggression, all those things. So basically, the futurist political movement, which is also in Italy and Yugoslavia, and the wider ideology is called accelerationism, with fervent French nationalism and irredentism, because remember, in this timeline, the French have, like, lost and shit. So they're, like, really mad, basically. They don't even have Alsace-Lorraine, and they just want to, you know, destroy everything and kill everything. So basically that, in the Kingdom of Italy, but that's old. And then there's Zenitist Yugoslavia, which is amazing. Zenitist Yugoslavia. Avangardni Nacionalni Pokret Zenit, the avant-garde national movement Zenith, a revolutionary party that preaches positive barbarism, superiority of the Balkan people over all of Europe, of course, and the rejection of bourgeois culture. Now, the leader is a guy called Dimitri Ljotic. However, and like he is like this kind of almost kind of primitivist kind of guy, you know, agrarian, mysticist, populist person. The ideal of the Barbaro genius. But apparently, fucking Nikola Tesla can take over for some reason. Nikola Tesla, the pride and scientific star of Yugoslavia, was invited by the Zenitist government from the USA to implement his revolutionary technologies. His huge popularity among the urban masses caused conflicts with the Zenitists, who see his popularity as a danger to Micic's regime. If Tesla decides that Micic is holding back the Slavs from a glorious future, many would support his takeover. So apparently, apparently he can take over and make Yugoslavia the great, you know, techno-fascist, gloriousest thing ever. Or maybe, I don't know, a different ideology, but let's face it, it's most likely fascist weird shit. Introduction to the avant-garde France, that's for later. That's Austria. Whatever, we're gonna deal with that when the time comes. So next up is a bunch of progress reports that we're going to go through very, very quickly just to see what's going on. So this is Russia, and it's just, you know, relatively normal. It explains KOLCHAK and what's going on, and he kills the Jews, he kills the SRs, and he directed a bombing incident in Tauride Palace. Now, the Tauride Palace was this is like basically the Reichstag fire of this timeline. The Tauride Palace was the place where the provisional government and the Duma had convened after the February Revolution. So it's, a bombing incident in the Tauride Palace is basically like the Reichstag fire in real life Nazi Germany. It's like, oh no, the Gaumies are trying to kill us, and like the Germans are trying to overthrow everything. Then there's plots within, and funnily enough, they want to like kill him when when he's going on a vacation, which might be a reference to the 1991 August coup of the Soviet Union, where Gorbachev was visiting his like dacha in Crimea on vacation, and in the heat of August, and in the Kremlin, like in Moscow, the sort of quote unquote USSR hardliners took over and tried to make a coup, and then they surrounded the villa, and a bunch of weird shit happened. Might be a reference to that. So yeah, basically it goes on, and there's different political actors that can take over. So like, for example, Drozdovsky, who was a White Army leader, can take over, and he can either sort of make an oligarchic Russian military regime kind of thing, or collaborate essentially with the more, again, reactionary members of the army. Where is it? And there's also the Black Hundredists involved, which are the kind of like precursors to fascism in a way, except they were like really crazy religious kind of guys that were very, very much into the Tsar and, preservation of, orthodox values. But I say that they're kind of the precursors to fascism in a little bit, because in 1905, these guys were formed. They were supposed to be, like, their real name was the Union of the Russian People, but they were called Black Hundredists because that was like the name of their paramilitaries, and they went around like doing pogroms and stuff. So yeah, it's basically like the black shirts. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, essentially Drozdovsky is a charismatic, popular figurehead among the ranks in the bourgeoisie due to his promise to bring back the glory of Stolypin's Russia. Now, Stolypin was the prime minister during 19, I believe, after the 1905 revolution and before 1913, I believe. Might be completely wrong. He introduced a bunch of like market reforms, especially when it came to agriculture. And he was incredibly unpopular among the peasantry, but very popular among the rich peasants, the kulaks, which you may have heard of, and the businessmen. So yeah, because his reforms essentially made it easier to conduct business, while at the same time also it made it so the peasantry lost some of its traditional lands and rights and stuff like that. Yeah, Dieterich is this, and Dieterich is the other one that can take over. He was also another white army leader. Now, did I not have? Yeah, like this one. The new course is, I believe, the thing that Drozdovsky can take upon and restore Stolypin's like ideas. So as you can see right now, continue the Stolypin's reforms, and you get, Ministry of Nationalities, let them have their culture or Russify, disregard a number of traitors or hang. Really good art, by the way. And then you get a bunch of, industrialization stuff. So cool. I like industrialization. Everyone likes industrialization. We all like industrialization. A bit like essentially Stalinism's economic program, forced industrialization. Let's arrest the Kyrgyz, send the armies in the steppes, colonize the East. And just take over everything and make it a factory, a big old factory. Then this one is what can happen with the Black Hundreds. So, they kill everyone. And this was the quote-unquote old one, probably, a bit replaced, but most likely it's going to be around the same kind of things. Every child a Bible, This is the more hardliner Dieterich's. And he is seriously supported by the Black Hundredists, the aristocracy, and the Orthodox Church. In the revolution, he declared a crusade against the White Army, or the Red Army, and he is likely to cooperate with the more reactionary and religious elements in Russia to rebuild his ideal society based on medieval Russia. Given his radicalism and lack of popular support, his odds of victory are slimmer. Both staunch monarchists, Dieterichs and Drozdovsky, are highly likely to dissolve KOLCHAK's republican name only and restore the monarchy. Is there anything interesting here? The Zemsky Sabor. Yeah, Zemsky Sabor is like this kind of Russian proto-parliament. It's a bit like the the Estates General in France. So like basically, all the nobles or whatever from obviously the land. Zemsky means lands, because Zemlya means land in Russian. So Zemsky is a bit like that, and Sabor just means like a gathering or a cathedral. Not sure how those two things get mixed up, but it means both things. So it's like the gathering of, the authority of the land. Or at least I believe it. I might be wrong, but that's generally how it goes. So yeah, that's basically Russia. Now there's another thing that can go on. So basically, where is it? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Dieterichs just wants to restore everything. So, yeah. KOLCHAK or Drozdovsky are going to be going for the Novi Kurs, proposed by the Neo-Stolypinates. And they want to, stimulate economic growth, blah, 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 empowering the kulaks, the landowners, and the industrial magnates. Then there's also the National Alliance of Russian Solidarists, which advocates class reconciliation, protectionism, all that stuff, and they're over there. The NTS. Now, in real life, this was a different thing, so we're not even going to talk about what it was in real life, but yeah, whatever. And then there's a bunch of stuff about the army that's not that interesting, but the interesting thing is the Governor General of the Baltic. Because as you see over here, like, there's a bunch of warlords also in Siberia, Central Asia, etc. But the most interesting one is the Baltic General Government, because they also have a bunch of German aristocratic exiles from the German Empire. But there's also local Baltic Germans that were a thing also in the Russian Empire, and they are a bunch of reactionaries, and they're particularly reactionary. During the revolution, his West Russian volunteer army was supported by local Baltic Germans and reactionary exiles of Germany against Latvian and Estonian nationalists and Bolsheviks. Since then, he has kept a low profile and leaves the daily governance to the Baltic German aristocracy. He has not shown any incentive in participating in the plot, aka the plot to murder KOLCHAK or whatever. However, our connections suggest that he is secretly supporting an ambitious political group called the Mladorossi, led by the Azerbaijani radical Alexander Kazanbek. And the mladorossi, as it explains, it means the young Russians. You probably, by now, if you watch some of my videos, know that these are, nazbols of the particularly derpy kind. They just basically want to have like the Soviet superstructure, state superstructure, so like workers' councils, welfare, command economy, control over production, all that stuff, with Tsarism. So they're gonna try to make the return of the Tsarina, which is supposed to be Anastasia, like in Disney, all that stuff, but it's a fake, probably, because that's what Russians like. And yeah, then they're gonna make a fucking glorious monarcho, quote-unquote, socialism, and make the United Russian Empire technocratic economy greater than Catherine, destined to stand. So they're gonna kill everyone, most likely. Establish the People's Oprichnina. Now, the Oprichnina was the Tsarist secret police of Ivan the Terrible, and yeah, they were like one of the first secret polices really to ever exist. And they were like this kind of state within a state that had their own territory, and they had their own, sort of, again, kind of standing army. And these lands that they had were to contribute to essentially being guard dogs for the Tsar, and they went around killing all the nobles that didn't like, that didn't like Ivan the Terrible. To be fair, they weren't all that bad because they mostly killed nobles, so I guess they had it coming. And this time it's the people's Oprichnina, because of fucking course. And there's the patriotic Soviets, because that's exactly how it works. And then they're going to have a bunch of corporatism, most likely, because that's what they usually do. So, yeah, glorious mladorossi over there. And, yeah, they're gonna kill everything and make the Russian Empire nazbol again. And then there's also, there's one area you may see near Mongolia that's over there in like that ugly kind of brownish color. It's called the Imperial Authority near the Baikal Lake. That's fucking Ungern Sternberg, obviously, because you just gotta have this guy. And he's got the Ungern Express that he can make. He can make the glorious Mongol Pan-Asian Islamic Brotherhood Christ risen in thee, so New Taiping Rebellion, divine tribal Mongol Pan-Russian Empire with Japanese investors and Chinese characteristics. That's gonna be fun. And Nirvana on Earth by killing everyone, which is just amazing. So yeah, and then there's another insane guy, that's Mayakovsky, who in real life was a communist poet, and he can proclaim himself the Emperor of Georgia or something. I don't know, it's weird. And he's accelerationist, which, as you can see, the ideology icon over here is edgy. So yeah, you can imagine that they're great. Oh, and by the way, the ideologies are vanguard socialism, libertarian Marxism, or normal communist, anarchist, quote-unquote revisionist. I love it. Revisionist socialism. Because revisionist, social democrat, liberal, conservative, right-wing authoritarian, despotic, aka paternal autocrat, reactionary, and accelerationist, which is, again, fascism, but with art and with memes. Then there's, I believe, Austria is the next one. Oh no, it's this one is the one for Asia. There's a bunch of stuff on like the Indian states, but it's probably really old, so I didn't care and I didn't read it. Then there's like Japan, which is interesting because their leaders are the reactionaries, and they're called the Sonnoha, which means in Japanese, I believe, the revere the emperor faction, probably. Is there a reason? Does it tell me? Because they lost the Russo-Japanese War, so they're even more insane than usual. But they've got a bunch of territory. Some 25,000 people were arrested for plotting socialist subversions, and yeah. Then they had the Taisho Golden Decade, Taisho Showa actually, but maybe Hirohito died, and now the emperor is Yasuhito, which is a bit analogous to real life, where the Taisho period, which was the 20s, is called the Taisho democracy period, and it was like the one time where Japanese imperial politics functioned without assassinations and coups every like 2 seconds. So it was for them like really good, and it ended with the Great Depression. They recovered from the Kanto earthquake, just like in real life, and they supported Jiang Zuolin. There's a bunch of weird shit in China that we're gonna check out later. And then there's like the Chuo Ha, which is the centralist faction, which is a bit like the control faction in real life, that tried to, sort of keep the hardliners of the Kodoha, the imperial way, kind of under, contained and not too dangerous. They have Tojo, and they have reformist technocrats with the Zaibatsu. And, obviously that's what essentially Japan in real life became. But then Hirohito was murdered or something by an anarchist, because that's how it works. And, yeah, reveal the emperor, expel the evils, Son no Tokan, which is a bit like what the Japanese hardline reactionary kind of nationalists said. What their slogan was during the Tokugawa shogunate. There was Son no Joi or something, which means revere the emperor and expel the barbarians. And that was kind of one of the first movements for what eventually became the Meiji Restoration, but it's complicated, so we're not going to go into that. So yeah, that's basically about it. They have, and their leader is Sadao Araki, who is, well, to put it mildly, a ridiculous, ultra-nationalist, but also kind of pan-Asianist, military, dictatorship, traditionalist, Japanese fascist guy. That's basically what he was in real life, and that's basically what he is right now as well. Because he's all about, the Bushido Code. Okay, so at the time in Japan, there was... Since the military was so involved in politics, military debates tended to merge into political debates. And what the army was saying is, we need to, our biggest threat is the Soviet Union. In this case, it might be Russia or the maintenance of the Japanese colonial empire or something. And that was partially an excuse for being yay, hey, civilian government, you need to fund the army more. Because the Japanese army was very technologically behind after the end of World War I, because the Navy had been given a little bit more priority because of the international situation requiring it. The Japanese army was relatively weak, and so they needed to modernize it, but to modernize it they needed money, and the government didn't have money. That's a problem. Two solutions. One faction, which is, again, the kind of technocrats, control faction kind of thing, their solution was to try to mobilize as much as possible sort of the resources of the state and try to develop, relatively modern technologies, all that kind of stuff, and modernize the army. The solution of the Imperial Way, which then later on ended up being adopted by everyone else because there was no other choice at the time, because it was clear that Japan did not have the resources to deal with the United States and to compete on an equal level like that, was, reverting to the Japanese spirit, quote unquote, which was, again, with our spiritual superiority and our Japanese spirit and our Bushido Code, we don't care about, artillery, tanks, aircraft, because we are just so much better than everyone else, and we're just going to go in and kill them. That was not accurate, and it was shown at Kalkengol, but hey, whatever. They didn't have a choice. Yeah, that's basically about it. And then there's also the possibility of a socialist uprising, so like you can see, there's all the national spirits. There's Yasuhito, who gets less political power, but more division organization and less justify war goal time. Yes. Japan's a rural backwater, obviously. There's Zaibatsu. There's China falls in 3 months. So basically, Japan's trying to invade China, which is the Shanxi clique. And if it doesn't work, it says China falls in 3 months. If it doesn't work, most likely, bad things will happen, which is great because it's fun. Then there's divided army, military, blah, 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 severe inequality, and political instability, obviously. Yeah, the Mikasa, which is the battleship that's, very, very famous for participating in the Russo-Japanese War, can be kind of like a battleship Potemkin, and there can be revolutionary Japan, which is amazing. And there's this little thing over here. I'm not sure how up-to-date it is, but look at that. Workers' Party of Japan, Pan-Asianists. Fucking hell, yeah. So you can play as crazy genocide Pan-Asianist Japan. This is China, which is, Beijing is controlled by Yan Xishan, who is the leader of the Shanxi clique. The guys that are just kind of sandwiched in the middle of nowhere in normal China. And he's a cool dude because in real life, he had this weird ideology that he called very humbly the Yan Xishan thought. A bit like the Mao Zedong thought, but Yan Xishan. And the idea, which was very big brain, I guess, was to combine capitalism, socialism, and Confucianism, because it's China. And so it was like, okay, let's have like quote-unquote socialism, so like a command economy, you know, planned economy, 5-year plans, all that stuff. He even had a 5-year plan, and, you know, the industry in his province, Shanxi, grew by quite a bit. And he was called like the model governor at the same time, and he was the leader of Shanxi from 1911 to 1949. So like literally in the entire Republican period, he was the leader of this province, which makes him probably the most successful warlord in Chinese, in the modern Chinese warlord era's history. And then we're gonna have, you know, capitalism, individual initiative, industrial development, all that stuff. And then we're going to have Confucianism, so like a moral, you know, framework to hold society together, because it's China and that's how we work. And yeah, that's just great. Then there's a bunch of weird warlord shit that we're going to, like, I can't be bothered to read all of this because it's always like, you know, this one warlord wins or the other one wins. And at this point, I'm just going to take a look at, you know, how's it going when I actually enter the game itself. However, there is an interesting thing. There's a thing called the Jinghua Jun, which means the Country Protection Army, which in real life was the Yunnan clique, or at least a very brief portion of the Yunnan clique. Then there's the Hunan clique, which the devs have teased Mao Zedong to be in the game, and Mao Zedong is from Hunan, so expect some weird revolutionary shenanigans coming out of there. Or maybe out of Liangguang, because they're supposed to be, again, the Kuomintang. However, they lost in this timeline, obviously. However, they're still around. The Shanshan Nationalist Government. Oh, okay, so they're in Hunan? I don't know. National Revolutionary Army launched a Northern Expedition. Oh, and Song Jiaren, who in real life was assassinated in 1912, I believe, by Yuan Shikai, who was the guy that tried to become emperor but failed, is still around, and he's the leader of the left KMT. Because why not? Over 500,000 people were killed, blah, blah, blah. After the assassination, Chen Qimei, the last powerful leader who can unite the KMT, 1930, blah, blah, blah. Chang's successor, Zhang Jingjiang, controlled the Yangtze Delta. Chen Qian, Song Jiaren's ally and old rival of Shu, returned from his own province of Hunan. Oh, okay, so Hunan is left KMT. Cheng's only ally was the Fujian clique, a faction led by breakaway left-wing KMT and their revisionist socialists patronized by Admiral Sa Zhenbing, which is a thing in real life, but we're not going to go into it because it's going to take forever. All sides founded their roots from their pre-KMT revolutionary organizations and are fiercely competing for hegemony all over South China. So Hunan and Fujian are definitely KMT, but who knows about Liangguang? Maybe it's like Chen Jiuming. And Xinjiang is weird because they can have this guy take over, and just type that in Google and, you know, see what comes up. And apparently he's a revolutionary anarchist, which is kind of funny. Then there's Germany, which is the Free Socialist Republic of Germany. We've already seen it. And again, they can have the KPD, which is like standard socialist, and yeah, then it's the normal stuff. I believe there is some like weird shit as well in here. I love this one. It's like whenever you capture territory, it's like dehumanize the enemy, or Bruderhand über die Gräben, which is like, you know, socialist internationalist humanism versus just dehumanize the enemy and make them, you know, slave laborers or whatever, I don't know. Then there's Austria, which looks a bit like this. There's 4 factions, I believe. There's the Conservative Democrats, which is, you know, Kurt Schnusnig, who in real life was the Austro-fascist and basically leader of Austria up to 38? Yeah, I think right up to the Anschluss. Then there's reactionary, or maybe they murdered him before that. I might just be completely wrong. Then there's the reactionary populist under centrist Hitler, because I don't know. Adolf Hitler represents a more authoritarian or reactionary side to the Austrian moderates in this timeline. He may rise to power after Schnusner's victory under a plot involving the nationalist parties. Hitler's main focus is uniting the Austrian peoples in a struggle against a German or French invasion. He hopes to use the Alps as a shield against attacking forces and has a great emphasis on fortifications. He hates the Swiss, viewing them as cowards, and hopes to take over Switzerland and create an Alpine line of defense. So he wants to take over Switzerland and make the Alpine Republic. Then there's the despotist, the Heimatblock, or the Fatherland Front, which is Dollfuss, who is this guy right to the right, I believe. Oh, no, it's the guy to the left. This one is Ernst Röhm, who is the accelerationist, aka fascist. So the ultra-nationalist, as you can see, there's the Austrian nationalist supremacy for Dollfuss, who is the guy to the left. And it's basically like, you know, Austria's amazing. So they Brexit out of the world and, you know, they make a few allies and try to consolidate and make Romme's fortification because obviously he is an exile in Austria. With the national rejuvenists in the, on the other hand, under Ernst Röhm, Röhm is a German immigrant and an associate of Dollfuss. He leads the Großdeutsche Volkspartei. While sharing many of Dollfuss's ideology, their main difference is Röhm's advocacy of pan-German nationalism rather than Austrian nationalism. Röhm rejects the traditional look of an Austria separate to Germany and dreams of a greater German state. He sees Austria as the haven for the free Germans and argues that it is for Austria to liberate their German brothers from the communist camp. Yeah. And apparently there can be some Austrian communists. So basically, with Austria, you're trying to retake over Germany and murder the communists. Then with France, things get bad. So they have the futurists, right? They have three factions. They have the Escadron, or the Escadron, the squadron. And they're like the, you know, kind of black shirts kind of people. They go around beating people up that they don't like. Then there's the Acephal, which is a bit like if the Freemasons were insane. And then there's the Druidists, who are primitivists for some reason. Now, the primitivists literally are primitivists, okay? Like, they say, like, oh yes, the Celtic state, because that's just the greatest idea. Let's just go back to the fucking countryside and shit and end Catholicism, because that's bad. And then in a even worse, like, kind of path, even more radical, they can say, away with the state, burn down the buildings, destroy the Industrial Revolution and every man hunter. So they literally destroy, like, all the factories, yes, in game 2. Yeah, even the military itself will be dissolved in favor of a massive horde of informal, sparsely armed militias. So this is why I say that this mod is kind of meant to be a meme a little bit. Because, yeah, apparently you can just restore the fucking Great Hunter-Gatherer Celtic Confederacy or something and try to, you know, kill everything. Because as it says, after France has ruined their own society, they must turn towards destroying the rest of the world. Keep in mind that this is in the dev diary. So they have all the you know, diplomacy. And then they try to take over everyone and kill, you know, destroying civilization, all that kind of stuff. Now, I wonder if... I know, see, like, here it shows them as having factories, but I wonder if, like, literally you have to destroy all the factories, and then, like, maybe you just have to... it's kind of hilarious, because then you have to just hope that you can capture all the equipment. It would be kind of fun to just try to play it, I guess. The Acephal, which is the... It's, like, basically a bit like ANCAPs, in a way. Like, yeah, if you take a look over here, their main thing is that they want to... Okay, this is kind of like weird to explain. Where is it? The Acephal follows a bizarre variant of esoteric futurism in which economies are driven by surplus consumption and lavish hedonism rather than scarcity, and in creating an aristocracy devoted to mystical enlightenment through bodily pleasure. So they want to get... You know, they want to smoke weed, essentially. And to increase consumption, they have like this, economic kind of debate, and they can either go free trade policies, so just, export a lot, or embrace the black market, which is all about like getting, relations with a bunch of, terrible people, like the United Fruit Company, the Triads, the Rogue Territories, fund wars, and then at the end, laws for pussies, because, of course. And then there's the more normal ones, which are just, the normal techno-fascist kind of guys, modernization without mercy, and, fascism with artistic characteristics, militarism as a cure for the world, citoyen soldat, and faster, 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 more technology, and feminism, and let's kill everything. And the culture of speed, all that thing. And by the way, you can pause and read the speech, which is really fucking funny. That's when they apparently go at war with the Brits or something. Then there's Montenegro, which is also insane because they want to create the fourth Rome. For some reason, they're also accelerationist, aka, the weird fascist people. But they have like a fixation with Rome for some reason. I don't even know. And they can literally like try to take over and make the pan-Slavist state and restore fourth Rome from Montenegro. I don't know. It's just another meme again. And then, the avant-garde France, but we've already seen that. And, that's Montenegro. They start off relatively small, but they try to expand. And then the last progress report that was released, and the one that were fucking Ayn Rand, go away. Yeah, apparently Ayn Rand can become the leader of maybe Russia, I think. Is Fiume, which is... Okay, so it's weird, because the Italian Regency of Carnaro and Upper Dalmatia, which is on the eastern coast of the Adriatic, is the incubator of political futurism and the starting point of the new revolution across the world, blah, 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 blah. Many call the Regency Fiume after its capital and center of activity. Its territories comprise several small portions of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire, centered around the former Corpus Separatum of Rijeka, which just means river, Fiume. In the initial peace settlement following the Great War, it was made a free city and as a solution to a border dispute between Yugoslavia and Italy. Then Gabriele D'Annunzio took over, and, you could probably kind of get what's going on from Führerreich as well, from, what's going on in Italy and Führerreich with D'Annunzio and all those people, the Italian Valkists. And, so all these crazy Italian nationalists go in and take over, and they make this kind of rump state out of this little town. And it's a whole big political experiment, blah, blah, blah. You can pause and read it. It's interesting. Do it. Then D'Annunzio dies, and then they have to choose a new leader. There's three factions again. They really like the number 3. One of them is the Theorist. So that's Marinetti, who is in real life the earliest leader of futurism. And, sort of the artist behind the movement's beginning. And they're a bit like, again, the techno-fascists, we're going to call it. They're just the techno-fascists. They want speed, art, glorious, war, killing. It's great. We're going fast. We're bombing people. It's great. And all these factions, by the way, want to take over Italy, despite the fact that at the beginning this territory is an Italian kind of autonomous region. Because in real life, what happened to this thing, which was a real life thing, is that the Italian Navy came over and bombed them, and the Italian army came in and, made them go away. Except, obviously, later on, the whole experience was sort of, you could say, adopted into the fascist canon of, like, the great Italian nationalism and stuff. Because a lot of the people that did participate in this action then later on went on to help Mussolini, and, it's complicated. But all of them want to take over the Italian government. Because, they struck a deal with D'Annunzio, giving him de facto control over the conquered territories because it had also expanded, and it controls most of the Adriatic coast. While de jure, it would be an autonomous state under Italy. yeah, they annexed Dalmatia, they annexed Istria, and a bunch of other territories in there. And their focuses are all meant to be like kind of a little bit ambiguous as to what they do. So yeah, but essentially, imagine it's them making crazy machine cult things and going around killing people. That's basically about it. It's a bit like if the fascists were Mad Max, a little bit. And then there's two more factions. One of them is the Aviator, who is a weird dude called Guido Keller. As you can see, he is a weird guy. I don't know anything about him IRL, so yeah. But basically, he just does a bunch of weird shit in a way. And it's kind of funny because you can see, like, unlike Marinetti, he will not try to impose specific futurist dogma, allowing various cults, groups, madmen, and revolutionaries to have absolute freedom in Fiume. Yeah, that sounds like a very good idea. So basically just let everyone do whatever the fuck. And then they have this company of, like, this kind of militia of bare-chested fascist super soldiers. Yeah, he's gonna go in and kill Italy, spreading the wild energy of danger, true freedom, and romantic access to the whole glorious Italian fatherland. So, you know, he's gonna have contacts inside of Italy and go in and recruit Italian naval captains to his side, use the remaining black shirts to destabilize the weak liberal fools, and outfit a great aerial armada to crush the senile parliamentarians from the sky. So, just, you know, he wants to have fun, essentially. Yeah, the last one is the fucking Japanese samurai poet, scholar, Italian pasta boo, known as Harukichi Shimoi, who in real life was a real guy that came to Italy in like the 1910s or something. He became a university professor teaching Japanese, but he was a pasta boo. He studied, like, you know, Italian literature and practiced his gladius every day and spoke Italian to his elders, all that kind of stuff. And he's a master of karate. And he then goes on and he joins the Italian army in 1917 to fight in the Great War. He then goes and helps D'Annunzio on his Fiume adventure in real life again, and he was known as like the samurai of Fiume or something. And yeah, he established a highly popular martial school teaching Italian soldiers the ways of the samurai. This is just fucking hell memes. Unlike the techno worship of Marinetti or the energetic decadentism of Keller, Shimoi offers his own oriental spin on Fiume's futurism. Taking a highly nationalistic, militaristic, and well-organized approach, he merges Italian nationalism with Japanese principles of hierarchy and authority. So basically, he makes the Italian-Japanese fascism of doom, conscripting the militia, centralizing the corporation, subjugating the council, streamlining the laws, regimenting the institutions, and let's make Italy great again, hailed as the Despota Orientale, which means the Oriental despot, by his samurai. He believes that a new Bushido for Italy is needed so that the Italian people can regain their past glory. This guy sounds fun to play. The revolutionary freedom that D'Annunzio preferred in his ranks will be removed and replaced with the strict ascetic lifestyle of the Eastern warriors. So yeah, bring the black shirts into the fold, shift Keller into the Air Corps, a Navy for the Regency, forging the sword, and then he's going to go in and... you know, Shimoi can finally bring Italy under the control of a man who knows how to use natural greatness to maximum effect. And, you know, yay, let's have fun and murder everyone in Italy. So that's basically Red Flood. I'm going to play it. I'm going to have fun. And, yeah, tell me what you think. And, yeah, again, it's not out yet, but it will be soon. I will maybe include a link to the Discord so that you can join and check out the development. So, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon. Have a nice day.